Well, viewers, to start off, we have an interesting topic. Now, you must all remember school days, right? You could have loved or hated school, but there is one thing that you would have not been able to avoid. Well, that's carrying your school bag. But more often, these school bags weigh a lot, making it very difficult for the students to really carry the same. Keeping the same in mind, the Karnataka government has now taken fair action for the students by dividing the school textbooks into two parts, which has reduced a lot of burden off the students' shoulders, quite literally here. Now, what does this mean? By splitting the textbooks into two sections, this plan aims to reduce the weight of the unnecessary books. The weight of the bag that the students carry will be reduced by 50% if this step is taken. Now, instead of providing one book for the whole year, now students will get two different books for the same subject. That is, one for the summative assessment part 1 and the other for the assessment part 2. Now, let me tell our viewers here that in 2019, the Department of State Education Research and even Training formed a committee to look into the matter. They took into account various stakeholders such as educationists, doctors, legal advisors, even pediatricians, who had taken up an extensive study to come up with an optimum bag weight for the students in different classes. Now, the committee held a meeting on the 6th of October this year and submitted a report on the 12th, after which the government has issued the order last week. The decision here is to reduce the weight of the school bags for the students and will come into action from the year 2024-2025, and this will apply to most of the schools in the state. Now, while of course this move has drawn a lot of people to come out and say that this is a good move, we spoke to several Bengalurians about it to understand what they think about this. Let's listen to their opinions.
It's a very good initiative if government is thinking that way, but how it happens now, I mean, one textbook, if you are putting it into two parts, it may be like it will impose more cost towards it, and that will again come back to the parents only. So if that is not going to happen, if the cost remains same and within that cost if they are doing it, then it's a very good initiative from the government.
I seriously feel it is required because the amount of burden the kids carry, it is really very bad. There is actually certain limit of weight which you can carry a certain kid. I mean to say the age, depend on the age limit. So if you take those things, I think maybe their posture may get impacted, or the bones may get weakened.
Let's open this up. Vinesh Menon is the CEO of Ampersand Group. He's joining us today on the broadcast. He's also an educationist. Advocate Anubha Shrivastava, President of India White Parents Association. Uttam N. Parekh is a class 9 student who's also joining us. Let me take this across to the student first. Uttam, what do you feel about this particular move? Firstly, before you answer that, I want you to tell me what's the average weight of your school bag on a regular basis?
Sir, can you repeat your network connection?
Okay, Uttam, I'm asking you what is the average weight that you carry to school every day in your school bag? And is it comfortable?
No, it's not like comfortable. We get back pain twice or three times in a week.
Okay, and what do you make of the move now that's coming in from the Karnataka government? Do you feel that this is a good move to reduce the weight of the school bags by about 50%? Do you feel it will help the students, and why?
It will help the students because they will carry weight on their shoulders, and they will give the bags to their parents if they get heavy weight.
Okay. Let me also bring in the other guests. Advocate Anubha Shrivastava is also with us. Anubha, this is a very important decision that has been taken. Of course, it took some time for the entire committee to be set up, to study this, submit its report. But what do you make of, a move like this now that is coming to the fore?
Yeah, see, this is a good move, but there's no clarity. I have gone through the article I don't know. There is no clarity. See, in Maharashtra also, the government introduced this concept last year, and they have come up with this that they have reduced the syllabus in two parts. The books will be divided in two parts, and like Maharashtra, first semester and second semester wise system is being introduced in Maharashtra last year. And as far as Karnataka is concerned, I don't know how are they going to implement it. But if they're dividing the subject in two parts, then that definitely it's a good move, like Maharashtra government did. And if they're not, provided they're not reducing the syllabus should not be reduced. The syllabus, which is very important for these children, that should not be reduced. Yes, if they're reducing not reducing the syllabus, but they're just dividing the syllabus in two parts, one and two, then it is a good move. And apart from that, as one of the parents said recently, that the weight should not be on their pocket. So I think if it is reasonable, the price of the books also should be reasonable. It's not that the one book will be of the same price, which is like, suppose a book costs 100 rupees. If you're going to divide it in two parts, that's cost should remain same. Maybe 10, 15 rupees extra, 20 rupees extra, parent will be willing to spend. But if you are going to charge 100 rupees for each textbook, then definitely parents will also raise voice. So that the government should consider that also.
Okay, Mr. Menon, there are, of course, challenges that come with these sort of moves all of a sudden. How do you really regulate it? Also, here, the cost of books, when you have two different books that is being published, is there a concern that, the students will probably have to shell out more? What are the concerns really? While, of course, there is a lot of positives to take away, and there has been a long-standing demand that, the burden on the students, especially on their shoulders with these school bags, should be reduced. It comes with its own sets of challenges. And, we just had, Anubha talk about how it will be implemented and its challenges, because we've seen other states propose something similar and probably not implemented in the best way that it could have been. So, Mr. Menon, what is your take? Being an educationist, you probably understand this issue much better.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak. I think prima facie, I would tend to agree with both with Ms. Anubha and the student, and I guess one of the parents, that practically it's a fairly, it's an interestingly good move. And I'll tell you why. There have been many moves in the past, many initiatives in the past to try and reduce the weight of the school bag. Now, implementing this has always been a challenge. And I think practically somewhere, if you simply split the books into two sections, it mathematically reduces the weight. And like Anubha ji said, as long as there is no reduction in the syllabus, this seems like a fairly practical, implementable move. That's one. The challenges, okay, so the challenges are two, three fold out here. One, I think one size cannot fit all. So I don't think it's proper to just have this rule implemented across all kinds of schools. Both Karnataka as well as the country, I think that the kind of schools that exist are very diverse. You've got very modern, progressive schools which work a lot on digital platforms, which have got lockers inside the schools, where the school does not encourage the students to take the books home. And there are also schools into the rural belt which do. So I think to try and have a standard kind of a rule across all areas, probably, or across all schools, could be a little, I think that may not be required. Secondly, I'm not sure this is a large percentage of parents, but there are parents and there are children who like to understand the entire year's syllabus in one stroke and then start planning their study, the whole strategy of how to cover that. Now, if you do not do this and if you actually break up the sections, probably you're not going to know anything about what's going to happen in the second part of the year when you have the books. While psychologically it's positive, but I think that probably is the only other concern that I can see. Overall, I think the concern is deeper. I think if you ask me, in an ideal world, we shouldn't even have the kind of discussions around these areas, because the entire process of having books in the first place is to take books home, study home, have homeworks. That concept itself should change, but that is going to take a little while. So given the current scenario, I think trying to make an immediate impact by trying to reduce the school bag through splitting the books is not a bad decision.
Let's go back to Uttam here. Uttam, you heard some of the other panelists, some of the suggestions that they were making, some of the queries that they had. As a student, when a law like this is being brought to the fore, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Are there any concerns?
Sir, actually, your written network, your voice is not audible.
You go ahead. If you heard my question, you go ahead with the answer.
Yeah, actually,
We can hear you.
it is not audible.
Okay, I was asking you, do you have any concerns if when you have a rule like this that the government is bringing to the fore as a student? Do you see any concerns?
No, sir. No, there is no concern about this rule.
Right. Right, Uttam. Now, quickly, if I could take a few closing remarks from Vinesh Menon as well. Mr. Menon, you know, there's a lot that was spoken about. While this is a strategy to probably divide the books into two, a focus on e-learning is something that has been widely spoken about. I'm sure many of the private schools are largely implementing this so that the usage of books is reduced. But there are, of course, many people who believe that books are probably the best way that the student learns instead of completely switching to digital. What's your take on all of this? Do you feel that, you know, probably e-learning partially probably could be another way to reduce the burden instead of just dividing the books into two halves?
Yeah, like I said, today the digital platforms has the entire syllabus available online. But the question is who can access them? I think if you look at the number of schools that we have in the country or in Karnataka, I think not more than maybe about 5 to 7% of the students can really access devices and go digital. So to that extent, if you want to solve the larger problem, this may not be the only way to do it. Although I do believe that since you asked me the question of whether we need e-learning versus books, I think you need a good mixture of both. I don't think you should. The books are very important for students to understand the basic concept of reading. I think in today's world with digital access going up, I think the ability to learn how to read, the ability to have a habit to read is going down, and that should not be the case. And yet, as the child starts progressing towards the higher grades, I think e-learning is a fantastic way of bringing out contextualization in education to try and make education more interesting, bring in a certain experiential way of learning. So to that extent, I think e-learning is good. So like I said, it's a combination of both. But the real issue is if you're really trying to get education down to the last mile, and is solving that is a larger problem. And there, my closing remarks would be that right now, to make an impact, this is a good move because I don't think a child should be able to really take on heavy school bags and affect his or her lumbar and spine. To that extent, currently it's a big impact move. But over time, I don't think this should be the only move. The last point is, I think education being a concurrent subject, you have a situation where both the center and the state can both take calls. I think it is very important for the two to get together and have much more intensive dialogue in trying to bring out solutions to the larger problem.
Okay, Anubha, as a parent, are you more for e-learning? Are you for this division of books? And you were also saying that there was more clarity that was required. So going forward as a parent, how do you really view this?
One point which I would like to make it here is that as far as 10th standard is concerned, because they are going to implement it from 1st to 10th. As far as 10th board is concerned, I don't know if the government is going to bring the 5th and 8th board also as per NEP. I don't know whether Karnataka government is going to implement. But suppose 10th standard, 10th board is already there in Karnataka for all the boards, across all the boards. So how are they going to divide the syllabus for 10th board? Because 10th board, there is no semester system. You have to give exam in the month of March. And by end of November or maybe by end of October, most of the schools complete their syllabus because they have pre-boards in the month of November and December. So how the government is going to implement this scheme, especially for board students? So there will be a challenge, no doubt, for most of the schools. They're going to implement it in private schools also. So apart from government, even private schools will face a lot of challenge as far as the partition of syllabus is concerned. So that should be considered before implementing this before implementing this scheme. And that is the only concern which I have.
Absolutely.
And as far as other classes are concerned, slowly and steady, they will definitely understand how to cope up But for board students, it will be a challenging task. And as far as e-learning is concerned, I will give you an example of Swedish government. They have recently they have introduced this e-learning concept in school, but now they have taken back their decision because they're saying that they want to bring back the old school system of handwriting and all. So they're not.
Yes, there's of course a very
this
divided
new
thought as far as e-learning is concerned. COVID is something that pushed a lot of schools towards e-learning. However, of course, there seems to be a lot of consensus about reducing the size of the books, at least from the schools and the students carrying them to school. I thank all our panelists for making time and sharing your opinions here. We're going to be moving on now. And of course, we'll keep a close watch as well as to when the government implements it, how it actually really reflects on the ground.